Planning a road trip through Utah can be really overwhelming, but hopefully not after you watch this video where we'll be sharing all of the mistakes to avoid on your road trip. We've made a lot of these mistakes ourselves on our first road trip through Utah, and they all could have been easily avoidable if we did more research, but we wanted to share them with you so you don't make the same mistakes we did.
If you're new here, we're Logan and Audrey, and we've been traveling the world full-time for almost a year now. And on this channel, we share all of our travel tips and vlogs to show you the world and help make your trip planning a little bit easier. So if that sounds like something you'd love, make sure to like and subscribe down below. One of the biggest mistakes you can make on your road trip is not downloading offline maps or saving your Airbnb instructions ahead of time. Once you leave the cities, cell service becomes extremely unreliable. Over 70% of Utah is classified as rural or remote land, meaning there are a lot of areas where you'll have no signal at all. This actually happened to us when we were leaving Zion National Park. We tried pulling up directions to our Airbnb, and without realizing it, we had lost service, so we ended up going to the complete opposite direction. And what was supposed to be a 20-minute drive turned into over an hour. Downloading offline maps is also important if you're planning to hike. A lot of national parks don't have service once you're inside. So if you don't download offline trail maps ahead of time, you won't be able to search for directions, and you may even have a hard time following the trail. We would recommend using the apps AllTrails or Gala GPS. And if you're staying in an Airbnb, make sure you save your Airbnb codes and directions ahead of time. Some of the places we stayed had zero service even at the property itself. So if you don't have screenshots or save your check-in instructions and door codes while you have the service, you might show up and not even be able to get inside. It's such a simple thing to do and will save you a lot of stress.
Another mistake to avoid is not getting the National Park Pass. If you're road tripping through Utah, there's a good chance you're hitting at least a few national parks, and those entry fees add up fast. For example, Zion is $35 per vehicle, Arches is $30, and most of the others are in that same price range. So if you're visiting more than 2 parks, the America the Beautiful Pass is totally worth it. It costs around $80 and it's good for an entire year, so you can use it again for future trips too. This pass works for all US national parks. It covers Zion, Arches, Bryce Canyon, Capitol Reef, and Canyonlands, so every national park in the state. You can buy the pass online, but we honestly found it easier to just buy it at the park gate when we arrived. Just make sure you have the physical pass on you, because if you show up at the entrance without it, you'll have to pay the entry fee again. It's such an easy way to save money if you're visiting multiple national parks, and it makes checking in a lot faster and easier. If you're only going to one national park, but for multiple days, make sure to save your entry fee receipt because it's valid for 1 week. But if you don't have it with you, you'll have to pay the entry fee again.
The next mistake to avoid is not getting gas when you have the chance. If you're coming from a densely populated place like Florida or California, you're probably used to having gas stations pretty much everywhere. It's easy to get in the habit of driving around on a quarter tank but then just stopping whenever it's convenient. But Utah is a lot different. Once you leave the main towns, gas stations can be few and far between, especially when you're driving between national parks or through more remote areas. That's why it's really important to fill up your tank before you start driving for the day and to top off wherever you see a gas station, even if you're still half full. There were a few times on our trip where we realized we were down to a quarter tank and didn't see a gas station for miles. It was a little stressful, and it's just not something you want to worry about when you're trying to enjoy the views. Staying ahead on gas is a simple habit that makes your road trip a lot smoother. This will just give you the peace of mind so you can focus on the adventure instead of the fuel gauge.
Another mistake to avoid is not renting a 4x4 or a high clearance vehicle. For most of your Utah road trip, you won't need a 4x4 or high clearance vehicle. All of the main roads and even the drives into national parks like Zion, Arches, and Bryce Canyon are fully paved and easy to access with a regular car. But if you're hoping to explore some of Utah's more unique or lesser known spots, that's where you'll need this type of car. We had planned to spend a full day visiting places like Bentonite Hills, Moonscape Overlook, and some of the back roads near Capitol Reef. And what we didn't realize ahead of time was that most of these roads needed a 4x4 or high clearance. We ended up having to skip them entirely because we didn't want to risk getting stuck. It was definitely a letdown, especially after spending so much time mapping out those locations. So even though you technically can do a Utah road trip with a regular car, if you're planning to go a little off the beaten path, a 4x4 gives you way more flexibility. It's one of those things that's easy to overlook during the planning stage, but it can really limit what you're able to see once you're there.
Get a 4x4. Mistake number 5 is going to be not checking road closures or trail closures. If you're planning a national park road trip through Utah, one thing you absolutely want to stay on top of is road closures and trail alerts, especially if you're visiting during the winter or early spring. A lot of parks have certain roads or hikes that close seasonally due to snow, ice, or unsafe conditions. And if you don't check ahead, you might drive somewhere only to find out it's blocked off. For example, the road to Lava Point in Zion National Park is completely closed in the winter months because of snow accumulation. There are also trail closures that happen randomly for maintenance or weather damage, and it's very easy to miss those updates if you're not looking at the park's website. So before you head out each day, take a minute to check the official National Park Service site for each park. They update closures and alerts daily. It only takes a second, and it can save you a ton of time and disappointment if one of your must-see spots happens to be closed. A little bit of planning goes a long way.
Now on to mistake 6, which is only booking one night in Moab, Utah. There are so many things to do here. It's consistently ranked as one of the best adventure towns in the US, and for good reason. There's not just one, but 2 national parks here, Arches and Canyonlands. It's also home to Dead Horse Point State Park, which has some of the best views in the state. Beyond the parks, there's mountain biking, rock climbing, and whitewater rafting on the Colorado River. Even just driving around Moab is beautiful. The landscape is unlike anything else we've ever seen before, and you could easily spend a few days there and not run out of things to do. The only downside is that Moab can get really expensive, especially during the popular summer months. And if you wait too long to book, your options get limited fast. So if you're road tripping through Utah, definitely give yourself a couple of nights in Moab. You definitely won't regret it.
Another mistake is not making time for scenic pull-offs and drives. On our first Utah road trip, we noticed a bunch of scenic pull-offs along the roads, and it didn't even cross our minds when we were planning our trip. But by the time we saw them, our schedule was already so packed that we didn't have time to stop and enjoy any of them. It's something that we really wish we had planned for ahead of time, because some of them have amazing views you can't find anywhere else. There are also some incredible scenic drives that take a little longer but are totally worth it. One of the best examples is Scenic Byway 12, which connects Zion to Bryce Canyon. Instead of taking the fastest route, it takes you through one of the most beautiful drives in the entire country. Another one is the Scenic Loop through Monument Valley, which takes around 3 hours to complete. It might sound like a long time, but it's completely worth it. So when planning your road trip, definitely build in a little buffer time, leave room to pull over and take the scenic routes when you can. It will definitely make your trip feel a lot more memorable.
If you're on a national park road trip, another mistake you will want to avoid is not checking which national parks require timed entry. Some parks, like Arches National Park, have started using the system during peak season to manage crowds. That means you can't just show up whenever you want. You'll need to reserve a specific entry time in advance, and spots can fill up really quickly, especially during holidays or summer months. If you don't plan ahead, you might end up driving all the way out to the park just to be turned away at the entrance, which could completely throw off your schedule for the day. So before you finalize your route, double check the National Park Service website for any timed entry requirements and book those reservations as soon as possible. It's a small step that can save you a lot of stress during your trip.
Mistake number 9 might seem obvious, but not factoring in time zone changes can be really easy to forget. And if you're flying into Las Vegas, keep in mind that it's on the Pacific Standard Time, while Utah is on Mountain Standard Time. This means that 10 a.m. in Vegas, it's already 11 a.m. in Utah. This becomes really important if you're making reservations on the day you arrive, or if you're planning to drive back to catch a flight. It's easy to accidentally cut yourself short on time without realizing it. So when you're scheduling things like check-ins, activities, or airport drop-offs, make sure you're clear on which time zone you're using. It can really make a big difference on your travel day going smoothly.
And last but not least is not downloading music or podcasts ahead of time. Like we mentioned earlier, phone service in Utah is very unreliable, especially once you leave the cities and get into more remote areas. If you don't download your music or podcasts ahead of time, there's a good chance you won't be able to stream anything while you're driving. And when you're on long stretches of road with no signal and no entertainment, the drive can start to feel a little longer than it actually is. This is especially true if you're road tripping alone or have a long driving day. So before you hit the road each day, take a few minutes to download whatever you want to listen to. It makes a huge difference and it helps pass the time way faster.
And that will be all of our mistakes to avoid on your Utah road trip. We really hope this video was helpful for you. Be sure to let us know down in the comments if there's any more you would add. And if you want to see more videos like this, please make sure to like the video and subscribe.